The views and opinions of the following show do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of News Talk 1450 WOL, Radio 1 Incorporated, or their management.
This is Montgomery Mosaic on 1450 WOL, WPRS, HD2, and worldwide on WOLDCnews.com. Montgomery Mosaic features topics of interest to Montgomery County residents, businesses, and visitors. Here now is your host, Deborah Milo.
Good morning, Montgomery County, and thanks so much for joining us for the June edition of Montgomery Mosaic. I'm your host, Deborah Milo. Well, I hope you get a chance to go outside and get some playtime in today because, you know, we all need play, including our children. And speaking of going outside to play, I think summer's pretty much underway, and everywhere you look, kids are enjoying the great outdoors. But as wonderful as being a kid can be, not all kids have the opportunity to have a good home with all the joyous benefits that come with it. So today, we're going to talk about the importance of foster parenting and adoption, especially within the African American community. My guest today is Angela English, and she's manager of Child Welfare Services, specialized out-of-homes section with the Montgomery County Department of Health and Human Services. Now, Angela supervises over 60 employees, including supervisors, social workers, and an administrative staff. Angela, welcome to Montgomery Mosaic.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate you coming on today's show. You know, this is really an important and timeless topic to talk about, but before we begin, talk a little bit about yourself and what drew you to work on behalf of children, and help me to understand how you supervise all those people.
Well, I have the fortune of having other people who supervise. I have the supervisors to supervise. So I'm very, I have great assistance in doing that. I came about being a social worker because I always thought children deserved a voice. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know who gave it to them. So
wow. Okay.
I thought perhaps I can do that. And that would help the children have a better life. Mm-hmm. That was just the way I looked at it. And now, I don't know why I thought children didn't have a word to say, because in my home, that's not the way I grew up. I always had something to say, and they had something to say to me, and then there were some consequences.
Of course. That's usually how it is, you know.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about and create a basic understanding for the listening audience about the difference between foster parenting and adoption. Can you talk about that?
Well, really, there isn't a difference. Mm-hmm. In the state of Maryland, both, whenever you go to become licensed for a foster home, mm-hmm. you are licensed as an adoptive parent as well. So you can adopt if you so choose or not. It's just what happened was people were fostering and then they wanted to adopt, so then we had to redo the process, and that was seen as a waste of time. So we just do it at the same time. So there's no difference at all. They do go through the same licensing process. Mm-hmm. They foster the same children, and in fact, those are generally the children they wind up adopting. And most of our foster parents do adopt.
You know, it's interesting because, and this is, I know I'm speaking about a time before, as my children like to say, Mom, you were around when water was invented, but, you know, we didn't understand, or, you know, growing up, I didn't understand the difference between foster care and adoption. I thought there was a difference. Reason being is because you came into contact with kids when you were in school who were either or. So, you know.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Well, when I'm saying there's no difference, I mean in the licensing of their homes.
Oh, the process.
Now, yes, the process. Now, there is a difference in the legality of it all. The children that are adopted are legal members of that prospective family. Mm-hmm. The children that are fostered are children who will possibly go back to their homes, because that's where we start. We always want to try to make it better in the home situation and return the child back to the family.
So who are the children that are in need of foster parents within the county?
The Child Welfare Services are charged with children who are not safe in their homes and are at risk due to physical, sexual, or neglect. Mm-hmm. Okay? And those are generally our children that we would remove and put into a foster home.
Okay. And so the process of that is different or similar to what we were just talking about?
Well, the homes would be licensed. No child goes into a home that isn't approved or licensed, because there's a number of things that we want to make sure that our basic needs are there, and that the home is safe, that we're going to put them in because there's no point in removing if they're already safe. Okay? So the process is the same.
Okay, so now just a little bit about the various reasons as to why foster care is necessary in family scenarios. I know you briefly described some of the situations such as neglect, sexual abuse. Is there one specific category that you see more on the rise than others?
No, not really. We generally get more neglect, though, than we do the other categories. And sometimes it's a matter of lack of parenting skill, lack of finance, lack of just kind of general knowledge about child development.
Really? Okay, so a lot of parents, would they typically be younger parents, that, especially when it comes to understanding child development, is what I'm asking?
Well, the parents generally have some other impairments as well. Unfortunately, the drug rise is a major problem, and sometimes when you're impaired, you don't have the wherewithal to think straight and be able to know that you shouldn't perhaps leave a 5-year-old to watch an infant.
And, you know, situations like that, we harken in my mind back to the movie Raising Isaiah. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Yeah, not everyone is able to come out of that situation, you know, to the extent that the actress portrayed it to be.
Exactly. Children, thank God, are very resilient, given different circumstances, helping and propping up the families, you know, teaching people. Frequently, you know, we always say in our office that children don't come with a license, and nobody has to take a course.
That's right.
So you have a child, and then you say, oh my goodness, what do I do with this child? Now, if you're very young and you've not been around children, you have no clue.
And that's true. You know, I remember, again, many eons ago, that, you know, you could go through the YWCA to get certified as a babysitter.
Yes.
You know, I don't even know if that's still something that process exists, but, you know, they taught you pretty much how to help a child if you were going to be a babysitter, and you had to be a certain age to be able to make that happen, to get that.
Well,
you know?
Yes, you do have to be a certain age still, but babysitting services, I'm not sure that's being taught. That's beyond my knowledge at this point.
Oh, I understand. It's just something that kind of crossed my mind. Good morning again, listeners. You're tuned in to Montgomery Mosaic on Talk Radio, 1450 WOL, and I'm your host, Deborah Milo, and today I'm talking with Angela English with the Montgomery County Department of Health and Human Services about the importance of foster care and adoption. Angela, talk a little bit about what the qualifications are for becoming a foster parent.
Well, you must be 21 years or older, own or rent your own house or apartment, be in good physical and mental health, be able to meet your own family's financial obligations, submit your housing to an inspection, and pass a criminal background check.
And that criminal background check is very critical, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Talk a little bit about what some of the expectations are with regard to how that foster parent, talk about some of the types of things foster parents think about, you know, before they go into that process.
Well, a lot of times they're worried about, well, how will I take care of this child? What kind of supports will be there? What if this child has specific needs? I've never run into the situation before. Who would I call? What will I do? We do have social workers assigned to foster home families.
I was just about to ask if there was a support system in place, and I'm sure there is.
Yes, we have foster home. We have social workers, and in Montgomery County, we're very fortunate. Unlike the rest of the state, all of our people are actually master-level social workers.
Oh, beautiful.
So they have a lot of skill sets that are available to them that generally you don't have at a bachelor's level.
That's true.
And they have a lot of clinical information, so they help in any way possible with the home. So the foster adoptive parent has a home worker, and if they decide to move on, there is an adoption social worker assigned to them and that child. So we tailor our responses to the needs of the family.
And that makes sense. What are some of the most unique situations you've seen with regard to fostering children?
Well, I believe that the foster parents are just pure angels. They allow people to come into their homes, and these children they don't know, and the children come from varying circumstances that a number of our foster parents have never heard of, never dreamed of being exposed to. and they allow those children in their home, and they bring them in as their family member.
Now, don't you think that's amazing?
Absolutely. They are absolutely angels. Every time I get a chance to speak to them, I tell them thank you, and I tell them we could not do our job without them.
And that's exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I want to make sure that our listeners have clarity about the end goal of foster parenting, which is to reunite families, right?
Absolutely.
And I know that's very important, but now I want to talk a bit more and go more in depth about adoption and why it's so important, especially in the African American community.
Well, in adoption, the child is legally a part of a family.
Right.
Nothing is more unsettling to any of us as to not belong anywhere. You
That's
need,
right.
you feel like you need to belong somewhere, and the family is very important. The family is what we call they create what we call a forever family.
A forever family.
Forever
okay,
family.
so there's even language
Yes.
that speaks to this.
Yes, it's total permanence for the child.
Mm.
And as a member, they have all the rights, and and all the craziness our own families bring to us.
Wait a minute, what makes you think my family brings crazy?
I'm so sorry. I mean my family only.
No, you had it right the first time, actually.
And it's feeling settled and feeling like you have a spot in the world, feeling very connected to our diverse heritage, taking advantage of our strong family support systems,
mm-hmm.
and in our community where worship is still very important.
Absolutely, absolutely.
The relatives that adopt, which is the second part, we will look first when we bring a child in. We look for family to take that child. Because we want the child to stay as close to family and as safe as they can be.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we normally look for that family. That is our first people to look for. We want the child to remain with the family traditions and, not be deprived of any cultural identity. It's extremely important for children to feel like they know who they are, where they come from.
Mm-hmm.
And we try our best. We work very hard to try to do that for them.
And, I'll tell you, growing up the way I did, it was amazing when you talk about some of the cultural traditions. There are just things, family reunions, going to church or a place of worship on Sunday or Saturday, whatever day your day of worship would be. All those things about understanding and listening to your parents and your grandparents. Those are the things I think about that so many children miss out on.
Well, I have a niece who is adopted, and bless her heart, she'll be 3 next month.
Beautiful.
And we have Sunday dinner together every Sunday, and my father insists that we all come to the house and we have dinner.
I think that's great.
And there is such joy in we haven't had a little one around in a few years. I won't say how few those years were, but it's just amazing, to watch her and to help her, and she knows she's loved.
And yes, that's at the end of the day, that's what you want.
Yes.
Happy Wednesday, listeners. If you've just tuned in, welcome to Montgomery Mosaic on Talk Radio 1450 WOL. It's Deborah Milo, your host, and I'm here talking with Angela English, Manager of Child Welfare Services with the County's Department of Health and Human Services. We're talking about the number of African American children in the county awaiting adoption. So, listeners, I really want you to lean in and listen about this important topic. So that's the part I want to get to, Angela. What's the percentage right now in the county of African American children in foster care versus adoption?
We have about 380 children in foster care in our county, which is really low because there's years ago we had 500 and more.
Right.
But we have 380 now in foster care. Mm-hmm. We have children now. Our adoption numbers are low because what we're seeing a trend to is that families are taking their children, which is really wonderful because, that's our history of being caregivers, and that's what we do. So our numbers are low, but the state assigns specific numbers that we have to do to, number of children to adopt.
Well, I'll tell you what, Angela. Mm-hmm. When we come back, we're going to talk more about this topic.
Okay.
You're listening to Montgomery Mosaic on Talk Radio 1450 WOL, and when we come back, we'll talk more about the importance of foster parenting and adoption. So stay with us. Good morning, County friends, and welcome back to Montgomery Mosaic with your host, Deborah Milo. I'm sitting here having a great discussion with Angela English, and she's with the county's Department of Health and Human Services. And, you know, we're talking about the issue of foster parenting and adoption, specifically within the African-American community. Before we went to break, Angela, we were talking about, you know, the number of children that are currently awaiting adoption and foster care. Could you kind of talk? Let's start back there.
Okay. All right. As I said, there's 380.
Mm-hmm.
We only have 200 homes in the county. Now, some of the children, of course, they come with their siblings.
I didn't think about that.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And we like to try to keep them together. Sometimes it's possible, sometimes it isn't.
Sure.
But however, even through the adoption process, if they're adopted by several different people, we try to make sure that they have the visits and they don't lose contact with each other, because that is important too. Another part of the who am I and where did I come from and where do I belong.
Right.
So we try to make sure that they are together about that. Even though our adoption numbers are going down, adoption is permanent. So we would like children to be in permanent situations.
Oh, of course.
You know, the families frequently will take custody and guardianship, and there's a lot of traditions and reasons why they don't want to adopt, and, you know.
Of course.
So we respect that as well. Our main interest is to make sure that the children are in homes that are happy, healthy, and safe, and they can grow and develop in the way they need to.
Are there any misconceptions about adoption?
Oh, yes.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. This is the part of the discussion that I really don't want to talk about, but I know I have to.
Well, people believe that if they adopt a baby, they can mold that baby into whatever they want.
They really need to come talk to me, because it doesn't work.
Well, no, it doesn't. And that was our surprise with our niece. We looked at her and we said, oh, she's got a personality of her own.
Oh, of course she does. And when they get to be teenagers, it's a whole different story.
Oh, thank you for that information. People believe there's no support for the families after they adopt, and all the contact with us ends. That's not true. If there's any kind of issues, we try to help in the post-adopt services to figure out what kind of services the child needs, what's going on. We don't kind of leave people stranded, okay? That older youth aren't adoptable. That is not true. We have gotten children adopted right before their 18th birthday.
Are you serious?
Yeah, absolutely.
I say that with such proclamation because that is so wonderful to hear. I don't hear those stories enough.
Yes, they want to be adopted. They want to be part of a family.
Of course they do.
And for us, it's just, I mean, that makes you cry. The babies and the older ones make you cry.
Yeah, of course.
You know, you were like, yes, we did it. And they do want to be adopted. And
I want to be adopted.
I understand for various reasons. Right. And also, if the children begin to have emotional problems, they can just return the child to the agency.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Now, see, and that leads me, and that's kind of leading me to what we were talking about in the green room, is about with children that actually have physical or mental health issues. You know, are there support systems in place to be able to help the adoptive parents with that process? Because, you know, medical bills can be really exorbitant. And when you're, you know, loving a child and taking care of a child that has these additional set of challenges, shall we say, then it can be very tough financially on the parents. So there are systems set up, is what you're saying.
Yes, we provide medical and financial assistance to offer to the parent. Prior to an adoption, there's an adoption agreement drawn.
Okay.
And that's part of what's in the adoption agreement. If we already know that this child has a set of special circumstances or concerns, we try to figure out and project long-term what will that mean for the child and set up situations so that the parent knows this will happen and this will happen. And in fact, the federal subsidy is based on what the needs of the child may be in the future.
Okay, so this is actually coming to a part of the question that I wanted to ask. So therefore, when it comes to medical resources or financial resources, is that, and forgive if this sounds trite or tactless, but the question is, do the resources cover the life of the child up until age 18?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I was curious about that because, again, when you don't have the information there to understand how the process works, you don't know.
Absolutely.
So now tell me something. Talk a little bit about the training that's required to become an adoptive parent.
Okay. In the state of Maryland, there is something called the PRIDE training, and it's formatted for all the jurisdictions in Maryland, so we all do the same training. Okay. And it's 27 hours of pre-service training. In that pre-service training, they talk about developmental issues. They talk about what circumstances the children may have come from. They answer a multitude of questions that the prospective foster adoptive parents have to try to make sure that they're more comfortable and know what they're stepping into so they don't step into something blind.
Of course.
Okay. There's also 10 annual service training hours and that everyone in the state must take as well. Okay. And that generally we try to fashion that around any kind of trends that we see.
Right.
You know, now unfortunately, everybody's diagnosed with ADHD.
You said everybody's diagnosed with ADHD. Sometimes I wonder about myself, but hey.
Well, we see it a lot. So if we're seeing that a great deal, we try to fashion that training so that the foster parent or the adoptive parent will know this is what I can expect. And they won't go, you know, how sometimes we will say, oh, my God, what's wrong with that child?
Right.
You know, but they'll say, oh, I get it. I see where this is rooted, you know, and they'll understand and be able to know what services they need to look for in order to, you know, sort of help that child move through that episode.
That education is so important, you know, to be able to understand what you're dealing with.
Absolutely.
So now let me ask you. We talked about the training piece. I want to talk about shift a little bit, and I want to talk about the details about the Foster Parent Appreciation Picnic.
Oh. Well, we're having the Foster Parent Appreciation Picnic on I want to say the 22nd.
This month?
This month.
Okay.
And it's at Borough Park. And
that's one of my favorite parks.
It's lovely.
It is.
It's appreciation. We try to help the children appreciate the fact that it's the end of the school year, so they have fun.
Trust me, they know.
Well, I think that we want the foster parents and adoptive parents, well, you know, to appreciate it as well.
Of course.
And have some fun. A child's life is about a lot of play. And in play, you know, it's so very important because they learn so much during that play.
Yes, they do.
You know, and it's also helping them to be connected to other people. So we try to make sure that we make it fun. It's a lot of work, but it is so worth it.
I like how you said it very slowly. Lot of work,
but it's worth it. It's worth it. And in fact, we all just smile. We make sure that we honor our seniors by giving them scholarships. They're going on to different directions in their life. A lot of our seniors go on to college.
And I was about to ask you, it must make you feel like a proud parent, quote.
Absolutely.
You know, when you see that child moving on to college to create a pathway for him or herself.
Absolutely.
That is amazing. So what else about the Appreciation Day picnic?
Well, the Appreciation Picnic is, it's for the workers to come and they can talk to the families at a different level.
Okay.
It's one thing to always be about business.
Right.
But there's another thing to be in a relaxed atmosphere, to be able to talk about things that aren't necessarily clinical, what's going on with the child.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's like, how are you? So we too connect on a different level.
Right.
You know, we get to talk to each other as human beings do and find out what's going on.
Okay, so now is there a website or anywhere that our listeners can visit to be able to get information about the picnic?
Well, I don't believe the picnic's on the website, but we do have a website that will tell you about foster care recruitment.
Oh, great! That's even better.
Okay,
what's the website?
Our website for HHS is www.montgomerycountymd.gov/HHS. And we have another one. Hold on a second. I'm trying to, because I get them all confused.
There's a lot. There are a lot.
Yes. And then there's a direct one for us, our page, and it's montgomerycountymd.gov/HHS program /CYF become foster parent -P396.1 .html.
Wow.
Yeah, that's why I have to read it.
No, I understand. So if one of our listeners, if listeners want to go to the HHA's website, they will be able to navigate through to get to the page, the specific page that they need?
Yes, and if they would like to, they don't want to go to the website and they would like to speak to one of our recruiters, they're able to leave a message for Miss Dana Gardner, whose phone number is 240-777-1664.
Please repeat that, and her name also.
Okay, her name is Miss Dana Gardner, 240-777-1664. And we have a Spanish language recruiter also, Miss Salvador. We call her Soli. Her name is Soledad, and it's Calvo. And her number is 240-777-4121. Again, Soledad Calvo, 240-777-4121.
Well, Angela, let me ask you, do you have any words of wisdom to leave with our listeners about the importance and the beauty of adoption?
Yes. The older children that we have that don't want to be adopted, we look for lifelong connections for those children before they launch into adulthood. We work tirelessly to make sure that they can develop trust with an adult that they can connect with and have a listening ear. In addition to that, the research shows that children develop better in family situations. And my professional and personal opinion is that since the children don't create the circumstances they're born into, they need and deserve the best possible life.
That's the best way to put it. Well, County friends, that's all we have time for today. I hope you enjoyed the show. I want to thank Angela English of the Montgomery County Department of Health and Human Services for talking to us about the importance of adoption. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in today. Don't forget, tune in next month for another Montgomery Mosaic on 1450 WOL, WPRS HD2, and worldwide on WOLDCnews.com. Till next time, make it a beautiful day for yourself and someone else.
Listening to Montgomery Mosaic, featuring topics of interest to Montgomery County residents, businesses, and visitors. For more information or a copy of the show, email public information at montgomerymd.gov or call 240-777-6507. Be sure to tune in at this time on the second Wednesday every month for Montgomery Mosaic on 1450 WOL, WPRS, HD2, and worldwide on WOLDCnews.com.